All right. So, um, building strong and respectful relationships with kids,
Yeah.
Younger generations, I think that's something we can all relate to.
It really is. It's definitely a challenge sometimes, especially, as they get older and start finding their own voices and pushing those boundaries.
Yeah, pushing boundaries and finding their voices, exactly.
Mm.
And, there's just so much wisdom out there from people who really understand family dynamics.
Oh, yeah, tons.
And today we're going to be looking at some insightful ideas from an article I found, and I thought it was really interesting.
It sounds good.
One thing that really stood out to me was this idea of calm as a superpower.
Oh, I love that. I think that's a great way to put it. When things get frustrating,
Yeah.
when you feel that disrespect,
Yeah.
your first instinct is just to react.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But this article, it really highlights that, emotional regulation, that's the foundation of any respectful relationship.
It's like taking a deep breath,
Yeah.
before you hit send on like a really angry email. We've all been there, right?
Yeah, we have. That's
Yeah.
a great analogy.
And, the article, it digs even deeper, and it talks about how our own emotional baggage can actually influence the way we parent.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's like we're all works in progress, and we bring our own histories into these relationships.
Right. It's like we're all carrying these invisible backpacks filled with our past. And sometimes, it spills out.
It does. And, the article talks about how kids are like little emotional detectives.
Oh, interesting.
They're always watching how we handle conflict and how we manage our own emotions. They learn by example, whether we realize it or not.
It's like they're little mirrors reflecting our own behavior.
Yeah. And so if we're, quick to anger or let frustration get the better of us,
They see that.
they do. And they learn that those are acceptable ways to respond.
It's like the classic do as I say, not as I do thing.
Exactly. It just doesn't work.
Actions speak louder than words, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to building trust and respect.
Absolutely. So another thing the article mentions is understanding the why behind a child's behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Like, looking beyond the eye rolls and the sassy remarks.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to really figure out what's going on.
Right. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. There's always more to the story.
Always. And the author highlights that, kids, especially younger ones, they don't always have the words to explain what they're feeling.
Yeah, they just haven't quite mastered that emotional vocabulary yet.
So what we might see as disrespect
Right.
could actually be anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Or fear.
Yeah, or even just confusion.
Exactly. They're trying to communicate, but they don't always know how.
It's like trying to send a text with a bad signal. The message gets all garbled.
That's a great analogy. I like that.
So the article gives an example of a child acting out because they were overwhelmed with a test at school.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
It wasn't intentional disrespect. It was a symptom of something deeper.
Right.
They just couldn't express those feelings.
Yeah, and that's where empathy comes in.
It does. Trying to see things from their perspective.
Exactly. Even if their behavior isn't acceptable.
It's about asking those important questions. Like, what might this child be going through?
Yeah, what anxieties might they be carrying?
Right, because those questions.
They can be so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can be so powerful. And once we understand, the emotions behind the behavior, we can start talking about boundaries.
Boundaries? Oh, yeah, those are important. Those are like guardrails on a winding road,
They are.
They keep everyone safe and on track.
Yeah, and this article talks about how to communicate those boundaries effectively.
Oh, yeah, because it's one thing to have boundaries, but it's another thing to communicate them in a way that actually makes sense.
Exactly. And the author emphasizes, it's not just about what you say, but how you say it.
Right, like your tone of voice.
Exactly. Calm communication. That's the key.
Yeah, I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
How do you react when someone's yelling at you?
Yeah, or talking down to you.
It just makes you want to get defensive.
Right, you shut down.
Yeah, it's like when someone cuts you off in traffic.
Totally.
You instantly go into fight or flight mode.
And kids, they're the same way. They react defensively when we're harsh or, condescending.
Makes sense.
But the article, it talks about setting boundaries in a firm but loving way.
Right, so it's not about being a pushover.
No, not at all. It's about explaining the reasons behind the rules.
So instead of just saying no TV before homework,
Right.
it's more like, hey, we value education.
Yeah.
And we want you to have time to focus on your studies before you relax.
Exactly. You're giving them context.
You are.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really interesting is how the article talks about boundaries in a totally different way.
Yeah.
It's not about restriction.
No.
It's about providing security.
It is.
Like boundaries are this framework that helps kids feel safe and understood.
They do. It's like giving them a map with clear landmarks so they can explore their world confidently.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And I think this ties back to respect.
It does.
When kids understand the boundaries, when they feel safe within them.
They're more likely to respect them.
Right. It's a two-way street. Respect breeds respect. And that brings us to another big point, leading by example.
Oh, yeah. This is a big one. The author really emphasizes that kids are always watching us.
Oh, yeah. They're little sponges, aren't they?
They are. They absorb everything.
It makes you want to really examine your own behavior.
Yeah, for sure. Because, we don't always get it right.
No, we're all human.
We are. But the point is consistency between our words and actions. That's what builds trust.
Right. And trust is the foundation of respect.
It is. So if we want our kids to be patient, we have to model patience. If we want them to be kind.
We have to be kind.
Exactly. It all starts with us.
It really does. The article gives a great example. If we want our kids to be good listeners.
Right.
We need to be good listeners when they talk to us.
Exactly. It's about showing them, not just telling them what respectful behavior looks like.
Actions speak louder than words, right?
Mm.
And, another thing that struck me about this article is that it's not all about discipline and boundaries.
No, it's not.
There's this emphasis on building positive connections outside of conflict.
Yes, that's so important.
It's like weaving those positive moments into the fabric of our relationship.
It is. It's about making those emotional deposits, filling their hearts with joy and connection.
It's not just about addressing the negative, but about creating those positive experiences that strengthen the bond.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It could be something as simple as sharing a meal together or working on a project side by side,
Right.
or just having a conversation where you're fully present, listening to their stories and their dreams.
Without distractions.
Exactly.
And, those moments, they're not just important for kids, they're important for any relationship.
That's true. When you feel valued, when you feel seen and heard,
Yeah.
you're naturally more inclined to be respectful and considerate.
It's about creating that foundation of love and connection where respect can grow.
It is. And that leads us to the final point, which I thought was particularly insightful.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
It's the idea of giving kids space to reflect after a conflict or a challenging situation.
Yeah.
It's about giving them time to process, instead of expecting them to change overnight or apologize right away.
Right. Give them a minute to think about it.
Exactly. Because forcing those things can actually be counterproductive.
Oh, how so?
Well, it can lead to resentment,
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
and it doesn't really teach them to take responsibility for their actions.
So instead of demanding an apology right away, what can we do?
Well, the article suggests asking open-ended questions
Okay.
to encourage them to think about what happened.
So, like, what kinds of questions?
Well, instead of saying, why did you do that?
Yeah.
You could try something like, what was going on for you in that moment?
Oh, that's good. It gives them a chance to explain their side,
Exactly. And another thing you can do is validate their feelings.
even if they were out of line.
Yeah, even if you don't agree with their behavior, you can still acknowledge how they were feeling.
That makes sense. So I could say something like, I understand you were angry, but hitting your brother is not okay.
Exactly. You're separating the person from the action.
Right. And sometimes the best thing to do is just listen.
Yeah, just be there for them.
Be that safe space for them to work through their emotions.
Exactly. And, this whole deep dive has really been about cultivating respect.
Yeah, not just with kids, but in all relationships.
It's about treating everyone with kindness and empathy,
Even when it's hard.
even when it's hard. And remembering that we're all works in progress,
We're all learning and growing.
We are. And as we continue on this journey, we're not alone.
We're all in this together.
We are. And with patience and a willingness to learn,
Yeah.
we can create a world where respect and love flourish.
That's a beautiful thought to end on. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you some new ideas to think about.
Yes, and we encourage you to keep learning and growing in your relationships.
Because building respectful connections is one of the most important things we can do.
It really is. It enriches our lives in so many ways.
It does. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. So every step we take towards greater understanding and connection is a step worth celebrating.